Welcome, the anointed ones. The truth doesn't knock. It kicks the door open when the lies get too comfortable. Somewhere right now, someone's pacing the floor, chewing on their lip, trying to figure out how to tell you something they've been hiding for years. Their heart's racing like it's being chased by karma in high heels, because deep down, they know the clock just hit zero. The funny thing? They thought they had more time to polish their lie, but the universe set a deadline they didn't sign up for. Studies have shown that when a person carries a heavy secret, their body literally starts to break down. Insomnia, anxiety, memory lapses. It's the body's way of screaming, "Release the truth," before it poisons everything. And right now, that's exactly what's happening behind closed doors in someone's life concerning you. They're sweating not because you're intimidating, but because fate's pulling the rug from under their excuses. Their silence has an expiration date, and time just cashed it in. The same truth they thought they could bury is now clawing its way out, and it's coming straight for your ears, whether they like it or not. So sit back, because what's about to unfold isn't gossip, it's divine exposure with a plot twist. Someone's scared out of their mind to finally say it, but they don't have a choice anymore. Time's up. Number 1, they know you see beyond their mask, and that's the real panic. They know you see beyond their mask, and that's what truly terrifies them. Most people wear a version of themselves that works in public, polished, polite, and predictable. But you look past the performance. You read their tone before they finish a sentence. You catch the contradiction between their eyes and their words. You don't need proof, because your spirit recognizes energy long before your mind collects evidence. And that's why they panic around you. You see the truth they've been running from their entire life. What unsettles them is that you don't even have to expose them to make them crumble. Your very awareness makes them feel naked. They feel the weight of your perception like a spotlight that never turns off. They can fake kindness with others, but with you, their own conscience betrays them. You don't react the way they expect, and that throws them off balance. The moment they try to manipulate you, you respond with calmness that feels supernatural, like you're reading their thoughts in real time. And in a way, you are, not through telepathy, but through truth vibration. They can't hide because your presence activates accountability. You carry the kind of energy that makes lies short-circuit. That's why people suddenly distance themselves or get defensive when you say nothing at all. It's not what you said, it's what they felt when you looked at them. They sense that you're not fooled, and that makes them uncomfortable in their own skin. You make their hidden motives echo too loudly to ignore. They fear you not because you're dangerous, but because you're authentic. Authenticity is fatal to manipulation. When someone's entire identity is built on pretending, a single honest soul is enough to unravel everything they've built. You don't even try to expose them. You just exist, and truth naturally exposes what's false. Deep down, they know that one day their act will collapse under the weight of your discernment. And what's wild is, you didn't even ask to see through people. It's just who you are. You were built with spiritual vision that detects energy, not words. They're scared because you remind them of the one thing they can't fake forever, the truth. And now, time's up. The mask is cracking. Number 2, they're afraid you'll speak the truth before they rewrite it. They're afraid you'll speak the truth before they can rewrite it. That's the root of their fear. They've spent so much time crafting a version of events that benefits them, a version where they're the hero, or at least not the villain. They rehearsed their excuses, fine-tuned their stories, and convinced others of their innocence. But now, divine timing has flipped the script. The truth they thought they buried is resurfacing, and they know you're holding the real version, the one they never wanted the world to hear. They thought they could control the narrative by controlling you. That's why they tried to silence you, discredit you, or make you doubt your memory. If they could make you question yourself, then their version would stand unchallenged. But what they didn't expect is that truth has its own timing, and it always comes back stronger, clearer, and sharper than before. Now, every lie they told is turning into evidence against them. Every false word is aging badly. You've outlived their lies, and that survival alone exposes everything they tried to hide. They're terrified because you're no longer emotionally tied to their story. You're detached now, and that means you can speak with clarity. You don't need revenge, you just need truth. And the moment truth stands alone without emotion, it becomes undeniable. That's what they fear. They can't twist your words anymore because your peace makes your story powerful. You don't argue, you know. The scariest part for them is realizing time is no longer on their side. They thought the longer they stayed quiet, the more things would fade. But instead, silence has become a spotlight. People are starting to connect dots. Patterns are showing. Their version of reality is collapsing under its own weight, and all it takes now is one honest word from you to finish what divine justice already started. They're anxious because deep down they feel it. The moment of truth is near. They can sense that the universe has turned its attention to your story. Their lies are cracking at the edges, and they can't patch them fast enough. They tried to rewrite the truth, but the pen was never really in their hand. It was in God's. And now, the real version is about to be read out loud. Number 3. They can't confess. Because the confession destroys the image that fed them. They can't confess because the truth would destroy the image that keeps them alive. Their whole identity is built on performance. The job title, the charm, the good person act, the perfectly curated life. They've convinced everyone around them that they're solid, respectable, maybe even righteous. But the truth? It's nothing like the story they've sold. If they ever admitted what really happened, everything they've built would collapse overnight. Their reputation, their influence, their social standing, all of it depends on silence. That's why their fear runs so deep. They're not protecting you from the truth. They're protecting their mask from falling apart. They can't afford to be honest because honesty would strip them of power. Confession requires humility, and humility would make them ordinary. They've spent years creating the illusion of control. The person who always knows what to say, always has the answers, always looks clean. But underneath that is someone terrified of being seen for who they truly are, flawed, insecure, and guilty. You threaten that illusion just by existing, because your growth highlights everything they refuse to confront in themselves. They know that if the truth comes out, they'll lose more than reputation. They'll lose control over how people perceive them, and control is their lifeline. That's why they twist the narrative, manipulate conversations, and pretend nothing happened. They need to stay the victim, the misunderstood one, the one who meant well. But truth doesn't care about intentions. It cares about alignment. And right now, everything about them is out of alignment. Their fear of exposure keeps them living in mental torment. They can't rest because they're constantly rehearsing their next cover story. Every time your name comes up, their heart races, not out of guilt alone, but because they know they're one conversation away from losing it all. You don't even have to say a word. The energy of truth is already chasing them down. They thought silence would protect them, but silence is now haunting them. They're not scared of judgment, they're scared of being known, because once they're known, the illusion dies. The truth they're hiding isn't just about what they did to you, it's about what they did to themselves trying to keep the lie alive. And the moment they speak it, the mask that fed them will finally starve. Number 4. The truth they're hiding isn't about you. It's about what they did through you. They never feared losing you. They feared losing the cover you unknowingly gave them. You were their credibility, their human disguise, their proof of decency. Your presence made them look safe, compassionate, trustworthy. They attached themselves to your purity because it made their darkness harder to detect. While you were moving with genuine love, they were using that same love as a shield for manipulation. They hid their motives behind your sincerity, and that's why the truth now feels explosive. It doesn't just expose them, it exposes the twisted way they operated through you. You weren't a participant in their darkness, you were the stage it performed on. They needed your energy to appear clean, your character to appear credible, your compassion to appear kind. Every time people saw you together, they saw your reflection and assumed it was theirs. That's how deeply they infiltrated your light. It wasn't just deception, it was spiritual identity theft. They borrowed your aura to access rooms they never qualified to enter. The truth that's surfacing now isn't just about betrayal. It's about how they used the best parts of you to hide the worst parts of themselves. They made your loyalty look foolish so they could appear powerful. They took your forgiveness as permission. They used your empathy as evidence of their innocence. But the moment you started waking up, the entire structure of their disguise started to shake. Because once the vessel becomes aware, the parasite has nowhere left to hide. They can't tell the truth now, because it would reveal that their success, their peace, even their reputation, was built on siphoning your spiritual energy. You were the engine that made their illusion run. And now that you've detached, the mask is slipping. People are starting to see that without your light, they don't shine at all. Their fear isn't about you exposing them, it's about you existing in truth without them. That's what exposes everything. Your clarity makes their chaos visible. Your peace makes their pretense crumble. They didn't just wrong you, they committed spiritual fraud. And now the energy they borrowed is returning to its rightful owner. You were never their shield, you were their test. And now that test is grading itself publicly through divine timing. Number 5. Their fear is proof that divine justice has entered the room. Their fear isn't random, it's spiritual evidence that justice is already in motion. When divine order steps into a situation, it doesn't need a courtroom or a judge. It simply begins to balance what was once uneven. That's why they're restless, jumpy, and constantly looking over their shoulder. They can feel something closing in, even if they can't name it. The truth they tried to bury didn't stay underground, it grew roots, and now those roots are cracking through the surface of their comfort. What's happening around them isn't coincidence, it's collection day. Every time someone manipulates, lies, or harms an innocent soul, a spiritual debt is created. And God doesn't forget the receipt. They thought because time passed, the balance cleared. But divine law doesn't move on emotion. It moves on alignment. Once the scales begin to tip, no charm, no apology, and no distraction can stop the reckoning. They're not shaking because they feel bad. They're shaking because what's owed is finally being required. You may notice their sudden nervousness, their attempts to make peace, or their strange kindness out of nowhere. That's not transformation, that's desperation. They're trying to rewrite karma with good manners. But divine justice doesn't take bribes, it deals in truth. Every sleepless night, every moment of paranoia, every loss of control they're experiencing, that's the vibration of accountability landing in real time. And here's the thing, this isn't punishment, it's purification. The universe doesn't destroy to harm, it destroys to restore. They had countless chances to confess, make things right, or at least be honest. But when someone keeps rejecting truth, truth starts showing up uninvited. And that's where they are now, facing what they tried to outrun. Their fear is confirmation that divine timing has activated. You don't need to lift a finger or seek revenge. Spiritual law is doing what human law couldn't. The same energy they sent out is circling back, amplified and undeniable. What's shaking them isn't karma's anger, it's karma's accuracy. The divine clock has struck zero, and justice has officially entered the room. Number 6. They realized you're the evidence. They thought they erased. They truly believed that if they destroyed your name, they could destroy the truth. They tried to smear your image, twist your story, and convince others that you were the problem. Because if they could erase your credibility, they could erase the evidence of what really happened. But what they didn't realize is that you were the evidence. You were the living record of everything they did in the dark. And no lie is powerful enough to silence a soul that refuses to stay buried. They underestimated divine strategy. Every time they spoke against you, every time they mocked or humiliated you, they were unknowingly documenting their own guilt. The very things they used to try to destroy your reputation ended up highlighting their true nature. The more they tried to cover you in dirt, the more your light reflected through it. You became the living contradiction to their narrative, the walking proof that truth doesn't die, it resurrects. They thought your silence meant defeat, but it was divine preservation. While they were busy spreading stories, God was writing one that no one could edit. Every trial, every humiliation, every loss became part of your testimony. Your healing became evidence. Your peace became proof. Your success became the final verdict. They don't fear what you'll say anymore. They fear what you've become. Because your life, your composure, and your glow are saying everything their mouths can't deny. Now every time your name comes up, their body reacts. Not because of guilt alone, but because you remind them that truth survived. You are proof that no manipulation, no rumor, no betrayal can kill what's divinely protected. They wanted to erase you from the story, but you became the headline. Your existence itself is a courtroom, and every blessing that follows you is the judge's gavel hitting the table. The sentence isn't revenge, it's exposure through elevation. You don't need to fight, argue, or prove anything. Your life already testifies. They look at you now and realize the truth they tried to hide grew legs, stood up, and started walking in public. And it has your face. You are the divine receipt that they can't return, the living proof that what's real can't be erased. Number 7. They're terrified, because you no longer need their validation to believe yourself. For the longest time, they had power over you, because they made you question your own reality. They played the mental games, twisting your words, minimizing your pain, making you feel dramatic or ungrateful for even noticing what was wrong. They'd hurt you, then convince you it didn't happen. That's how they maintained control. As long as you doubted yourself, they could keep playing innocent. But somewhere along the line, something shifted. You stopped needing their version of the story to make sense of what you experienced. You stopped asking for clarity from people who thrive on confusion. You learned to trust your own discernment, and that's when everything changed. Now they can't manipulate what you already understand. You no longer depend on their explanation to validate your feelings. You no longer shrink when they try to twist your perception. That unshakable awareness is what scares them most, because their old tactics don't work anymore. They can't control someone who's anchored in truth. You've become emotionally bulletproof, not because you're cold, but because you finally see clearly. They can't stand that your peace isn't for sale. When they sense you no longer need their approval, it rattles their sense of importance. People who manipulate others rely on emotional dependency. They need to be needed. Your self-trust threatens that. It exposes how powerless they really are when you don't rely on their permission to exist. They used to feel superior when you chased their reassurance, but now your silence feels like exile to them. You stopped debating lies, you simply outgrew them. The most threatening thing about you now is that you know. Not suspect, not guess, you know. And knowledge backed by peace is something they can't argue with. It's not rage, it's not revenge. It's certainty. That's what haunts them. You no longer seek closure from them because you realized closure was never theirs to give. The validation you used to beg for now flows from divine awareness, and they can feel the shift. Your energy says, I don't need your story anymore. I've already found the truth. That realization alone is enough to shake anyone who once fed on your confusion. Number 8. They tried to delay the truth, but you became the clock. They thought they could outsmart time, that if they stayed quiet long enough, the story would fade and the world would move on. They counted on your exhaustion, your forgiveness, your desire for peace. They assumed you'd eventually drop it, convince yourself it wasn't worth the fight, and rewrite history to protect your own heart. But what they didn't see coming was that time wasn't working for them. It was working for you. Every moment they kept quiet, truth matured. Every delay was actually a countdown toward exposure. What they thought was buying them time was really building your power. While they were waiting for memory to fade, your spiritual senses sharpened. You stopped obsessing over facts and started recognizing energy. You began to see patterns instead of excuses. You learned that silence doesn't erase truth, it intensifies it. The longer they avoided accountability, the heavier it became. Their denial turned into a ticking sound in the background of their life, echoing through every interaction, every false smile, every sleepless night. That's not guilt alone. That's divine pressure. You, on the other hand, transformed during the waiting. Time didn't weaken you, it refined you. The confusion that once clouded your mind became clarity. The pain that once silenced you became power. You stopped chasing apologies, and that's when the energy started shifting in your favor. You no longer needed them to tell the truth. The universe started doing it for you. Situations began unfolding, coincidences started aligning, and information that was once hidden began to surface naturally. You became the clock because truth now moves according to your growth. You're no longer reacting to what happened. You're radiating the energy that exposes what can't stay hidden. That's why they feel anxious around you. They sense that divine timing has synced itself to your frequency. You are no longer waiting for the truth. You've become the force that makes it arrive. Every step you take now triggers revelation. Every victory you experience exposes deceit. They tried to delay the truth, but delay was just the disguised divine timing war to let you evolve first. Now the clock they tried to control is ticking in your favor, and its sound is the truth coming home. Number 9. They thought they were playing chess, but God was writing revelation. They believed they were masterminds, clever enough to outthink everyone, including you. They moved with pride, calculated every word, and plotted every outcome like it was a game of chess. They thought you were the pawn, easy to predict and easy to control. What they didn't know was that the entire board was never theirs to begin with. While they were busy planning moves in secret, divine intelligence was quietly recording every step, turning their schemes into ingredients for revelation. Every hidden motive, every manipulation, every setup, all of it was being converted into evidence for their own downfall. They called it strategy, but it was really exposure dressed up as control. They were so focused on making sure they won that they never noticed the game was spiritual, not logical. God was never playing to win, he was writing to reveal. Every move they made was permitted, not because it was powerful, but because it was necessary to unveil who they truly were. Their deception became documentation, their arrogance became prophecy. They thought they were moving you, but in truth they were moving themselves toward the very outcome they feared most, being seen for who they are. The beauty of divine intelligence is that it never interrupts arrogance. It simply lets it run its course. That's why everything they planned seemed to work for a while. They mistook delay for victory. They mistook your silence for ignorance. They mistook God's patience for absence. And just when they started celebrating, the whole plan began to collapse under the weight of its own deceit. What they thought was power was actually their own exposure in slow motion. Now, they're realizing the truth. They were never the players. They were the lesson. Every calculated move only fed the revelation that's now unfolding. They don't have control anymore because the plot has flipped itself. The script they wrote has turned into their own confession. The same game they started is now the one that reveals them publicly, and they can't stop it. The board hasn't been overturned. It's just been redefined. It's not chess anymore. It's divine revelation, and every piece is moving exactly as heaven intended. Number 10. The truth they fear isn't verbal. It's energetic. The truth they fear isn't something they could ever say out loud. It's written in their energy. Words can lie, but energy never does. You've already felt it without a single confession. That strange tension when they walk into a room, that forced laughter that doesn't match their eyes, that overly sweet kindness that feels like it's hiding something. All of it is the vibration of guilt trying to mask itself as normal. They think they've kept everything under wraps, but the human body always betrays the soul. Their tone, their timing, their sudden need to over-explain, every bit of it is a spiritual confession. They don't realize that your spirit hears what their mouth refuses to say. You pick up on the shift in atmosphere when they approach you. You feel the weight of what they've done before they ever open their mouth. That's because energy communicates long before words do. The truth is already speaking through their posture, through their hesitation, through the awkward silence that follows every fake smile. Spiritually, they've already told you everything. Their energy is guilty, and their actions are the echo of that truth. What terrifies them is that you know without evidence. They can't debate energy. They can't argue with the fact that your discernment reads what's unspoken. They used to rely on your logic. They could twist your thoughts and confuse your emotions. But now your awareness comes from a higher source. You no longer listen with your ears. You listen with your intuition. And that level of knowing can't be manipulated. That's why they act strange around you now. They fidget, avoid eye contact, overcompensate with compliments, or suddenly go quiet. It's not respect, it's exposure. They can feel your spirit scanning the room, and it makes them uneasy. Their guilt leaks through every nervous gesture. The truth is already out, even if it hasn't been spoken. You don't need an apology to confirm what your soul already discerned. That's the part that unsettles them most, that you see them clearly without needing proof. The energy they emit is their confession, and the universe has already accepted it as evidence. Number 11. They're haunted by the version of you that knows. They're not haunted by your presence anymore. They're haunted by your awareness. You've evolved past needing closure, and that's what unsettles them the most. You're not chasing explanations, not replaying conversations in your head, not trying to make sense of their chaos. You simply see. And once you see, you can't unsee. That calm, unbothered awareness you now carry is more terrifying to them than any confrontation could ever be, because it means you're no longer inside their illusion. You're watching it from the outside. They used to rely on your emotions as their control panel. If they could trigger guilt, anger, or confusion, they could redirect your perception. But now, you've unplugged from that matrix completely. You don't react. You register. You observe their manipulation without absorbing it. That detachment is divine. It's not coldness, it's clarity. And clarity is the one thing that dismantles every lie they've ever told. They can feel that you know. You may not have said a word, but your silence carries understanding. Your energy no longer matches theirs, and that disconnect burns. You're operating from peace while they're stuck replaying the chaos they created. Every time they see you calm, collected, and grounded, it's a reminder that their power never came from dominance. It came from your confusion. And now that you see through it, they have nothing left to manipulate. What keeps them up at night isn't guilt alone. It's the realization that you're no longer in the fog. You remember everything, but without pain. You recall every lie, but without bitterness. That's when they understand they've lost control for good. They can't defend themselves against a version of you that doesn't need validation, doesn't crave revenge, and doesn't operate from wounds. You've become untouchable because your awareness doesn't feed their game, it ends it. They wanted you reactive. Now you're reflective. They wanted to be your focus. Now they're just a lesson. And that shift, that silent power, is what haunts them, because awareness doesn't yell. It just sees. And once it sees, it frees. Number 12. Their delay was never about timing. It was about hoping you'd die before the truth lived. Their delay was never about divine timing. It was about human cowardice. They weren't waiting for the right moment to come clean. They were hoping life itself would close your mouth for them. They prayed that exhaustion would mute you, that despair would drain your fight, that life would distract you long enough for truth to fossilize in silence. Their goal wasn't to outsmart time, it was to outlast your endurance. But they underestimated the kind of spirit they were dealing with. You didn't collapse. You transformed. Every delay they engineered became fertilizer for your awakening. They thought postponing justice would weaken you, but the waiting sharpened your discernment. It matured your perception, it refined your energy, and it gave you the one thing they could never counterfeit: divine patience. You learned how to wait without losing power, how to heal without losing memory, how to stay still without being stagnant. What they called delay was actually your becoming. The irony is brutal. While they tried to freeze the truth in time, the universe moved it into eternity. What they meant to bury became something immortal. Every prayer you whispered in pain was logged in divine archives, and now the clock that once worked in their favor has turned into their countdown. They didn't run out of time because time ended. They ran out of time because you transcended it. You're no longer operating on their schedule. You're operating on divine order. Their silence was a gamble, a desperate attempt to see if truth could die quietly. But truth doesn't die. It resurrects. It doesn't age. It ripens. And now it's ripe. The energy they tried to suppress has matured into consequence. They thought time was their accomplice, but time was only ever loyal to truth. And that's why the same time they weaponized has turned into their exposure. You've become timeless, not in years, but in impact. What they hoped would fade has only magnified. The very delay that was meant to erase you became the evidence of your endurance. And now, they're not just facing what they did, they're facing the eternal record of it. Time didn't protect them, it prepared your vindication. Number 13. The universe is forcing their mouth. Open through consequence. The universe has a way of making sure truth never stays buried for long. When divine order demands revelation, silence becomes a form of punishment. Their throat tightens, their sleep turns restless, their peace evaporates. Every attempt to suppress the truth starts to backfire as the energy of exposure builds pressure. The universe isn't politely asking them to confess anymore. It's forcing their mouth open through consequence. What was once a secret is now an echo bouncing through every corner of their life, demanding release. That's why strange things start happening. They slip up mid-conversation, exposing details they swore they'd take to the grave. People who have no connection to the situation start accidentally revealing things they shouldn't know. The same lie they used to manipulate others suddenly begins unraveling itself. Divine order doesn't need them to speak. It simply rearranges reality until the truth spills out anyway. Their own actions are turning into confessions. Every time they try to cover one lie, another layer of truth peeks through. Their social mask starts cracking under the weight of their choices. They might dream of what they did, see reminders in random events, or even feel physical discomfort whenever your name or presence is mentioned. That's the energetic pressure of divine justice tightening its grip. You don't have to say or do anything. The universe is doing the talking for you. Truth is not dependent on their cooperation. It's dependent on divine law. And divine law is undefeated. It will speak through situations, coincidences, and people they never expected. That random co-worker who brings up a detail from years ago? Not random. That sudden exposure on social media? Not chance. It's divine choreography in motion, forcing the hidden to become seen. They thought keeping quiet would protect them, but silence has become their loudest confession. The same universe they ignored while scheming is now the one scripting their undoing. There's no more hiding, not when consequence itself is fluent in truth. Every sleepless night, every nervous twitch, every accidental word, it's all the universe saying, "Speak, or I'll speak through your life." Number 14. You were never waiting on them. Heaven was waiting on you to be ready for the truth. You were never the one waiting on them. Heaven was waiting on you. The universe wasn't delaying the truth to protect them from exposure. It was delaying it to protect you from breaking. You had to grow into the strength required to hold divine revelation without collapsing under the emotional weight of it. The truth wasn't hidden from you. It was hidden for you, because premature knowing can destroy purpose. If you had known everything back then, your pain would have spoken louder than your wisdom. But now, your spirit has matured to the point where truth no longer devastates. It empowers. That's why the delay was never punishment. It was divine timing disguised as silence. You were being spiritually fortified, layer by layer. Life was training your nervous system to handle higher frequencies of reality. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every season of confusion was building your inner infrastructure. You needed that strength because real truth doesn't come gently. It comes like thunder, wrapped in light. And now, you can hold it without trembling. You can look at what they did, what they hid, what they feared, and not lose your peace. That's spiritual mastery. Their fear right now is proof that you've crossed into that threshold. They can sense that you no longer depend on their version of the story to feel complete. You've detached from the emotional contract that kept you waiting for their honesty. And in that detachment, you've become unstoppable. You don't need their confession to validate your clarity, you know. And that knowing carries a power they can't manipulate or silence. Heaven was never waiting on their courage. It was waiting on your readiness. Because once you reached this level of awareness, the truth became your ally instead of your wound. Now you're not a victim of what happened. You're a vessel of what it's producing. Their fear marks that divine shift. The moment when heaven says, "Now they're ready, release it." Their silence no longer weighs you down because your soul has learned how to rise above it. What they withheld no longer limits you. It now exposes them. The waiting season is over because you've become the very energy heaven was waiting to activate. You didn't just survive the delay, you became the reason truth couldn't stay buried any longer. Everything is aligning now, and not by coincidence but by divine orchestration. The silence, the delay, the unease, the trembling, all of it was part of a supernatural unveiling. What was once hidden in shadow is being dragged into light, not by force, but by the unstoppable gravity of divine truth. Every secret, every lie, every manipulation is finally answering to the law of balance. And you, the one they underestimated, gaslighted, and dismissed, have become the living proof that truth never dies. It only matures until it's ready to roar. You were never waiting on people to confess. Heaven was waiting on your spirit to evolve. That's why, when the truth finally reached you, it didn't break you. It confirmed you. The weight that once buried you has become your throne. Every sleepless night became part of your training. Every unanswered question became spiritual currency for revelation. You didn't just survive the darkness, you turned it into divine evidence. And now, the same people who once held power over your silence are trembling under the echo of your awareness. They thought time would erase the truth, but time ended up preserving it. They thought hiding it would protect them, but silence became their sentence. The divine clock has struck zero, and everything they delayed is now accelerating in your favor. You are not waiting for exposure anymore. You are the exposure. Every breath you take, every success you embody, every ounce of peace you radiate is living proof that divine justice doesn't need microphones. It uses lives as testimony. The universe is no longer whispering, it's speaking through you. And that's why this season feels different. You can sense it in your spirit. That divine certainty that nothing hidden can stay hidden when heaven has decided it's time. The truth isn't chasing them anymore. It's already caught them. And your evolution is the evidence. You are the closure, the vindication, and the revelation they never saw coming. And now, as divine order continues to move, don't shrink back. Walk boldly in the light that once made them uncomfortable. You've earned your clarity, and your peace is now your weapon. If this message spoke to your spirit, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment below sharing what resonated most with you. Don't forget to share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been carrying truth in silence, waiting for their divine moment. Their time is coming. The truth always finds its voice, and sometimes that voice is you. God bless you.